Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Prashha Dutra show. And today I'm really excited to talk to an old client, a friend, and somebody I really look up to. Deepthi is here with us today. She is a senior director of analytics, and she has done so many incredible things in her life, including moving from medicine to IT and then growing in IT. And it's not only her journey that inspires me and so many other women, but it's her commitment to leadership and it's her commitment to her community and team and everything that she does. She's also a podcast host for this She Thrives podcast, and today's her podcast's 1 year anniversary, and so very happy to celebrate that as well. So let me bring Dipti on, and we're gonna have some great conversation with her. We're gonna ask some great questions. We're gonna get to learn how you can lead better and create a career path that suits you, not a career path that you're sort of chasing just because somebody else has it. So, Deepthi is here. Welcome, Deepthi. Thank you so much for joining us all the way from my favorite city in the world, Pune.
Thank
Love
you
it.
so much, Prasha, for introducing me. And it's always a pleasure to be on your show. And
Yeah.
I think lovely introduction, and I'm very excited to start this. With all the technical issues which we had, I think finally we are live. I think the similar thing we faced in our when we launched our first, like my She Thrive podcast. I think similar story, but I think we know now how to navigate through these challenges and finally come live.
Right, right. Because it's all just a glitch, right? Like we cannot worry too much about it, and it's like you just move on and do things, and you've done that so well this past year and throughout your life, Deepthi. So how have things been since we last connected? Catch us up on last 12 months of your life. What all has been going on? How are things? Let's start there.
Sure, I think it's always a pleasure whenever I meet you. I think whenever I hear you talking, it always energizes me. So I think a lot of things have changed in this 1 year, and I missed you a lot, and I'm feeling really happy seeing you after so long. So what has changed? I think definitely. I would say the outlook towards what others think of me, right? That has changed drastically. I think if you remember, posting something on LinkedIn or talking somewhere was a very, very difficult task for me. It was like, oh my God, what about my identity? What about the way I am as a person? How would I do it? And all those fears which I had, right? I think somewhere I was able to overcome during this time,
Mm,
and that could only be possible when I took actions, when I started doing small bite size things like just posting a post, doing cheetah podcast. And I think that also helped me in my professional life,
mm,
because we might think that this is something, an extracurricular or something which we are doing for our purpose ourselves, but there is a lot of positive impact happening into our professional personal lives as
mm.
well, because we become more expressive. If you would have interviewed me 1 year back, I was not this expressive at all. So I think I have opened up because of this. I have been able to bring in more value to the table, and be more expressive. So I think a lot
Yeah,
of positive changes
I love it.
between
I
them.
think I think I'm actually giving a talk later this month in another cohort, and the topic of that talk is literally how to use a personal brand to grow your career. So like because that's what I did. Like how a TEDx talk took me like 4 steps ahead in the career ladder than any
Yep.
activity could have. It's such a high value adding activity and very high ROAS, right? Like return on ROI, sorry, very high ROI on like the just a few posts a week, and the impact of it is so incredible. And and I think most people fail to see that connection. And I think you've done a great job of sort of balancing the two really, really well because you're super passionate about your 9 to 5 as well, and
Yep.
it clearly shows. So it's a leadership. I feel like a personal brand is a leadership tool just like you said, not only because it creates your influence on outside of work, but because it increases your confidence, and then it helps you do the same thing in your job and influence people, because that's pretty much what leadership is, right? So I love how you've been
Absolutely.
leveraging it so well. But yeah, I love that. So now tell me, you made a fascinating transition, Deepthi, from Ayurvedic medicine to analytics and AI. What inspired this pivot, and what insights can you share with others who are looking to make bold career moves, especially in the STEM field, and especially women of color?
That's beautiful. I think it all depends on your interest. Like if I recollect my childhood, growing up, like when I was in somewhere around seventh grade, I was very fascinated about computers, and I was playing video games like anything. So I think that interest came in pretty early when I liked to explore new technology. At the same time, my favorite subject was science and biology. I was very curious to know how human body functions, how human body works, and what is the system and all. So I think biology was my favorite subject. I used to dissect rats. So I was thinking, like, why not dissect a human being and see what's inside? So that curiosity helped me get into medical, and especially liking holistic and alternative medicine. Did my ayurvedic medical school and graduated. And I think somewhere that technology, I was as a kid very curious and very explorative. So I used to use a lot of technology while studying medicine as well. Like others used to use paper presentations, and I used to use this PPT presentations. And like I think in 10th grade there was a new launch of Microsoft courses of Excel, Access, PPT. I'm talking about this 2000 era, right? And that is when I did, out of curiosity, I finished my 10th grade. I thought, what to do? Let's do this course and see. And then I started liking the presentation, the PPT part of it a lot. And then I started applying it to my medical presentations. And that led me that confidence, and I won national award in one of the liver disorder presentation. So that gave me confidence. Okay, I
Mm,
like both of it. So I think liking is one, and having that interest, passion, purpose will not come so early, but having that interest is
yeah.
the first start, I would say. And when I finished my medical, I just was working as a medical officer, and one day I just got a mail, saying that we need a medical professional understanding the medical and surgical data and do analysis for us. So that's how then I uh, thought, yeah, why not? Being a curious person, everything, I just said, okay, let me give it a shot and see how that works. And that's how I landed my first analytics job, and from there onwards it's just 17 years. From that, I
Wow.
didn't look back. So yeah, I mean, I think for anybody who wants to pursue, I would always suggest that it should start with your likingness and interest,
Mm,
and go to your childhood. There would be certain things which you were
yeah.
always curious about, and try to align towards your purpose or your career goals. And I think it takes courage just to take that leap, right? And just go and take that leap. But yes, if there is a warning, if you don't have that interest, even if you join, it will be worse situation. So I think it
Yeah.
you should like it, love it, live it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's hard for a lot of people with our backgrounds, from immigrant countries, India, and a lot of places which are so focused on employment
Yeah,
and income, and there's a lot of fighting for just get a job, and a lot of people have got into engineering because of it. And I think what you're
yeah,
talking about is very similar to to this really cool concept that I heard one of the people who was actually on the podcast as well, Jayshree Seth from 3M. She talks about this in her TEDx, which is like the biggest reason why the biggest thing that's missing for women to grow in STEM is context, right? So, meaning what you just said, if I can look at my past and create that story, that what we do in the academy, the your STEM story kind of journey. If we can connect all these dots, then we have more context and we can make sense of our choices as well. So even if you don't have this clarity that Deepti just shared about, like, oh, I always loved it, maybe you sit down and try to figure out how you ended up here. And a lot of times that opens more doors, right? Because I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, I made the wrong choice because of money and because of this and because of that, and then they feel stuck, and then they're like, oh, I can't control my future. This, which is what you did. I mean, you were in that field in medicine, and you're like, okay, you know what, like, I have these other interests and I want to grow. And just having that context helped you push through, being like, oh, I've always loved computers, so I can actually take this bold move, right? So I feel like sometimes
Yeah.
people, if they just look back, like you said, just look back and try to connect and create some context, so that that context then helps you make bold choices and move forward, is what I'm hearing. And I think that's just taking that time to reflect, I
Absolutely.
think is so powerful.
I think, you brought up a good point when, as Asians and Indians, and we are taught to be like, okay, it's either engineering or doctor when you grow up, right? There's limited
Yeah.
options. But I think as you, grow, you evolve, you understand what you really like. And today the times have changed, and I think that there are many options. You have so many options, and you can definitely give it a chance. If you have passion, liking towards certain things, you should definitely go for it.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. So what was one of the biggest challenges that you had early on in your career, Dipti? I know, you became a mom and, all these different things. I'm sure you had a lot of challenges in those 17 years. What's one of your first memory of being challenged in the STEM ecosystem?
Yeah, I don't know. Somehow I see challenges very differently. You know, um, it's not that I didn't face challenges. I did face a lot of challenges, and especially, I think every woman has a few things in her life, especially like most of the women face, right. First is the childbearing phase.
Mm,
Then there is menopausal, perimenopausal.
mm,
These are something which cannot be avoided, right? And
mm,
those are the, I think, maybe I'm I'm just revealing that I've crossed 40. So I know one of the challenges which I'm currently facing, which many people won't talk about it, is that there are certain biological changes happening in our body. And coming from medical background, I know there are certain things which happen, like the perimenopausal stage and menopausal stage. uh, Certain times, while we do work, we also have to manage ourselves in terms of certain changes happening in our body, especially during childbearing or
mm,
other stages, right? And there are a lot of fluctuations happening, and that do happen, and it's real. And navigating through those mood swings, navigating through those things, and managing different aspects of your life, like home and office, and the other things, is something which I think I have learned through. And it was kind of a hard way, because
mm,
we don't have role models to see. Like, if you see corporates, right, we have very few leaders, women leaders. And after a certain age, there are very few leaders, right? The career path becomes narrower. So how do we learn, right? And I think this is the space where more and more women can come forward and talk about the challenges, and especially the biological challenges, which
mm,
we can't avoid, right? And what I think in this phase is, I understood, is that self-care, self-management is at most important, and self-awareness, that yes, these are going to trouble you in certain periods. And one of the things I manage is communicating. One of the meetings, I was having severe kind of migraine, because of the period starting. So I just, in the meeting, I couldn't coordinate well. So I
mm,
directly communicated with the my manager. I'm facing this issue and I need some time, and I'll get back. And I think communicating and setting up the stage And I would say the rest of the days when you are feeling really good and your hormones have kicked up, you give it 100%, and then people
Mm.
will start believing you and trusting you, and they would accept you with all the flaws, with all the things which you are doing. So I think these are the types of challenges, because I wanted to talk about other challenges also, but I thought nobody would talk about the biological challenges, so let me
Ah,
talk about this.
I love it. No, actually, nobody would talk about it, and I think I love that you shared it. So tell me, how do you go about it? Because I know, like, if somebody is listening to this and wants to do the same thing, maybe they don't have supporting managers. Maybe they don't feel comfortable revealing their health situation.
Yeah.
So what would be a like a maybe a script, or like maybe what would you say to them? Like, how can they go about it if they're overthinking it and they really need the break? Because I feel like what women do is we overdo it, we undercommit, we
Yeah,
overcommit and
yeah, and
underdeliver.
overdoing to prove.
Yeah,
Yep,
and
yep,
we
yep,
do it, and
yep.
then we get all this frustration built up and resentment, and then we stop
Burnout.
communicating. Yeah, burnout. We stop communicating, and then
Yeah,
we burn that bridge with our manager some at some point. And so I'm trying to understand what would, like, just in your 2 cents, how can a young
yeah, sure.
lady go through it, or even women who are in director levels like yourself, like how can they start that bridge, like how can they start building that bridge with their manager, I guess.
Yeah, I think firstly is like I said, right? There's no such script, but I can tell you few things which I do,
Sure.
right? First is the self-awareness. First, you need to know your body, how it reacts in different situations. Most of the, like, I struggled my entire 30s not knowing, like, how my body is functioning, when I'm triggering, when I'm getting this thing. And I educate in a lot of other sessions which I conduct women, right? And we need to little bit self educate ourselves as well, like, there are
Mm,
cycles, biological cycle, and during certain periods of month, like especially the PMS month and especially the other months, it is you tend to get trigger a lot, right? And having that firstly self awareness and self education about how this hormones work, and especially knowing your own body and how it reacts to different customized situations is what one thing I would recommend. Second, I strongly believe in having very good work relationships, right? And it should not be coming in the last minute. What
mm,
I typically do is whenever I have the calls, there is always I start with casual talks or small talks, and mostly we talk on various other topics other than work. It's not always work. Even with my team, even with my um, uh, peers and superiors, I tend to talk some casual, and make that kind of a healthy environment where we
mm,
talk about sensitive topics also. And once we reach that relationship, we also talk about certain hard topics, like what women goes through, what is this
mm,
is typical things which sometimes happens. And when we prep them, it becomes easier when actual situation arise. And that is
mm,
where I just convey to them. See, everybody would not be open, I understand. Everybody would have their own thing, but I would suggest it's just like when you don't feel well, what you do when you suddenly get a fever, what you say, I'm not well and I would come back on this, I would need some break. You tell
mm,
that, right? It's the same thing. Only thing is, self care and self management will reduce the window of falling into that regularly or repeatedly.
mm.
Self care will help you become stronger, like, taking your vitamins, taking your supplements, or
Yeah.
eating healthy, sleeping on time, doing mindful practices. And I think one more thing I would say, having a coach and asking for help when you can't, like, say suppose, like, I struggled in my 30s of doing all the homework by myself, right? And I think having mentors like us, or having people who have already gone through, and consulting through the through coaches, or asking for help when they are equipped, or the senior mentors.
Mm,
I think having a mentor is definitely going to help. And I think I had some great women mentors who have gone through similar situations, and they used to share, like, I used to get to understand them, how they take care of their health. They used to share what supplements they are taking, and especially at age of 30, age of 40, what kind of nutrition should women take, and
Mm.
what kind of self-care women takes. It's all sharing helps a lot, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love that. And I think you brought a great point. I think the foundation of leadership is self-leadership, right? So if you can't lead
Yeah.
yourself, then how can you lead others? Like that's what I think is the essence of what you're saying. And then once you're self-leading or self-managing, then you can start to communicate that. And then, like you said, don't wait to build a relationship. I feel like relationships are the foundation of everything in life. And for whatever reason, we've moved away from it. I don't know why.
Yeah, yeah. I think because there is a fall, kind of a, what I would say, like, there is some kind of a notion that corporates are just mechanical, materialistic, and we tend to keep it that way, but it's not. Humans are working there, so it there where is the human element? We have lost it somewhere, right? And
Yeah.
uh, I have personally seen some people struggling just to say that they are not feeling good, or they,
Mm,
even in fact, the mental health space, right?
yeah.
Even that is considered taboo, and people don't speak up. And I think communication is very, very vital in corporates, and people think that they won't understand the personal issues, or they may not understand your health issues, or but it's not like that. Humans work, and humans have their own challenges, and communicating that in a right way will give, kind of, that that relationship will be understandable, and it's just like any other. Yeah.
Sorry. My internet went a little in and out, but
Oh, oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. But you were talking about the relationship building, and I think COVID has also affected some of the socializing and people
Yeah.
being more guarded and not opening up. So let's talk a little bit about relationships because I think this is a big one for women as well, especially in a male-dominated field. It can be a little sometimes I don't know icky or you're not sure how to go about it, or I also see maybe sometimes. Reverse prejudice. So, of course, there is bias from their side, but then just because we're dealing with men, we also come with a bunch of bias. So,
Yeah.
what would be your suggestion to some of your teammates and even people listening? Is like, how can we how can we build good relationships in corporate?
I think you brought up a real good point. It's both ways, right? And we always think that men should understand women, but I think women should also equally understand men. And I think these are two, species of humans. I mean, I should not use that word, but I think ultimately, but the core, the hierarchy is a human, right? And I
Mm,
think a lot of, there are similarities, but there are differences as well, and both needs to understand each other, like especially the biological factors which men don't go through.
mm,
So educating that, I think that is very much important for a woman to do to a man. And the emotional quotient, right? I think emotions definitely both men and women have, but the society expects have different expectations from both the genders, right? Like the men are supposed to be like, strong, and they shouldn't be crying, and they are conditioned in a different way, but they do have emotions. But the society doesn't allow them to show the emotions freely, right? And that is suppressed emotions. And same with women, that you know uh, somewhere I read a very good article that woman has a lot of good emotions, but the thing is that she thinks that it needs to be dependent on someone, and
mm.
owning that emotion, like, we have become financially independent, but we have not become emotionally independent yet. So this is the beautiful phrase I have heard somewhere. So I think women equally needs to take an accountability to own their own emotions, and
Mm.
support the society as well. So it's, I think, both ways, because I think, the biological things which women would know, men would not experience that. But educating them, like I said, right, in my meetings, in my this thing, I
Yeah.
talk about these topics as well, which are
Taboo
kind of
topics.
sensitive topics, but
Yeah.
that needs to be educated. And even in my sessions with all the women, and where men are audience, I talk about these things, like the periods, the maternity phase, the mm, perimenopausal phase or menopausal phase, because these are very very important. And they, because it's not just workplace, they need to be knowing that in their home as
Home
well.
also.
But
Mm.
the society is not ready yet in that. We are not in that culture yet, but I think
Yeah,
slowly, if every one of us start doing that,
yeah.
there is a broader
And
education over that.
yeah, and I think what you're sharing is also important. I think with relationship building, I think of course having the self leadership, understanding yourself is a part of it. But one
Yeah,
thing that you mentioned is vulnerability, right? Like, so being open,
yeah,
being transparent from get go. I feel like skyrockets trust, skyrockets your connection with someone.
yeah,
Because there is research done on how people feel connected. It's a neural link. So like when you watch TEDx, um, why do you feel what you feel? It's your brain is syncing with the speaker's brain, and that's the connection you feel to like Mel Robbins, right? It's not like Mel Robbins is doing something like to your life. It's just
yeah,
listening to her really has a biological reaction. And so opening up, sharing your stories, being vulnerable is a great way to build relationships, because you create that neural link with someone. You somehow synced, and that's the human connection that we all feel. And you just have to start with that thing that feels like, oh, I can't say that, because otherwise what will happen is you'll be just like everybody else who's talking about all the stuff but not going deep, but not sharing the real stuff.
yeah,
And then you end up not standing out, and then you have no sponsors, nobody knows who you are, you're just a person who you know and if you deliver, that's great, but the problem is you can't get ahead in a corporate job without relationships. Like, you cannot just
yeah,
go with just there's so many women, Deepthi, I'm sure you know, but it's like they just have their head down and they're just working, 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 and they're expecting the results to like carry them through the corporate ladder. And it's like,
yeah, yeah,
no, like you need
yeah.
relationships. It's a very big part of this journey. So talk to us a little bit about that. How did you become a senior director? Oh, I know everybody wants to know.
um I think it how the corporate career ladder works, right? It's just like comparison to the Maslow's hierarchy, right? When we start our career, it's all about, your belonging, your safety and all that is met during that, the lower pillar of it. And that's how everyone starts their career, right? And then there's something called as something called as self-esteem, self-worth. You start seeking, like how you go to, like how the promotion, when you're getting promotion, when you're getting the next title designation, this and that. And that's one of the era where you go into that phase, right? And then comes like the recognition, appreciation, belonging, and all that. And then you come to the last phase of self actualization, right? And that time you understand that you have crossed all these level, you have put in all of your efforts, and you have done what you could do. And what is that you give back now? What is the value you provide now? So you start thinking on those lines. And that is where, I moved a step ahead on my purpose, my value, how more, what more can I do, and what can I give back to the society, right?
Mm,
And that's how I think, as a leader, these play a, a major role, right? You're not just thinking about yourself, you're thinking about others, you're thinking,
mm,
you're giving more, you're giving value. And that's how my perspective, my outlook changed. And I think I took a lot of help of coaches, mentors, to have this. I think it, at one after one point of time, and with your limited knowledge, you might go at one level. But having experts and mentors, I always believe that I am not the alone person, or just going lonely,
mm,
and taking like I have all in me and I do that, right? I always believe in a teamwork and collaborative effort. And I think mentors, coaches have helped me a lot to where I have come here. So
mm.
I think experts help you fast track as well, and give you an perspective, different perspective which you don't have. And
Yeah.
somebody who's already been in executive position, can give you better mentorship on what more you can do, what more you
Mm-hmm.
can offer,
Yeah,
is what that understanding. So yeah,
I
I
love that.
think pretty much I would sum it up, that journey.
Yeah, I love that. I love the pyramid and the idea of that you have to recognize which phase you're in, right? Like if you're in that
Yeah,
survival
yeah,
mode, just starting, you got to get some of these basic things done. I always tell, when I work with women who are just starting their careers and they're so worried about like what's going to happen. We have a career ladder workshop in our program, so I'm like, okay, let's do it. However, like the basics of your life have to be figured out first, right? Like the family has to be figured
yeah,
out, the house has to be figured out. And so, no matter how much you want to contribute to the career, unless that basics are met, the needs are met as a human being, it's going to be very difficult to motivate yourself to do more, right? And sometimes that's where I think some people skip that step. They get the safety and they just run for the career and may find a different kind of challenge, skipping some of these steps. But I love that you use that technique to talk about it, because I think the first step is to figuring out where we are in the journey, and then as we get to the top, really seeking a lot more help than you did before to figure out purpose. Because I know when you came to me, when you came to the academy, we only talked about purpose, and I loved your drive for it, because you knew this is it, this is what I want next. Not a title, not a promotion, not money, not a job, not this, not that. I just want to feel like I have a purpose, and I know that that will drive the rest of my career. So I think you're very wise in that sense of like figuring out which path you're on, like which part of the
yeah,
pyramid you're
yeah.
on, and what is needed to support that part. So that also is a part of your self leadership and self management, Dipti. So like, yeah, very well put. I love that.
I think you brought up a really good point, and it definitely depends on different phases. And I would never say that you can't aspire for a title or a promotion, and that
Sure.
is the way to go. And you reach a certain level, and then you start thinking about other things, right? I don't want somebody to go into self-actualization phase right away. But one thing I would like to say, yes, you pointed out a very good point that many of us women stick or get stuck into the task oriented things, right? Like, and busy managing this, that, and kind of a superwoman syndrome, because we have grown up seeing our moms being everywhere at home. And we are like, okay, we'll manage home, we'll manage office, we'll manage everything. That is, I think, one of the challenges even I had faced. That's kind of an identity crisis, right? Because we
Mm,
always see our mothers, and especially homemakers. We have seen homemakers doing wonderful job at home, right? And we try to mimic that there at home, and then we try to do something great at office also. But I would say one of the things which everybody should learn is life skills also. It's not just the works and doing certifications and just putting the project and task together and just go home. No, you need to develop life skills where you need to know how to manage things at home and how to delegate things at home. And you need to change your conditioning, what you have seen
mm,
growing up. You cannot be your mom. You need to develop a new sense of identity where you are working. You need to give 100% to the work as well. So how do you manage energy? So it's all about managing energy. And to manage your energy, you need to delegate certain tasks, you need to free up your time, you need to take the time and put here into the work, or take the time to for fun and recreation. Many of
mm,
women I have seen, and I talk it a lot about in many sessions, that women are like burning out between home and office, and they are not giving time for self care or having any fun recreation or time to themselves. So having that time will give you double the energy to manage other areas. So understanding these concept and doing a self having self awareness, doing self management, self care, having the self the management around you
mm,
in such a way that you're delegating. I always say,
mm.
you can automate certain things, you can automate, please automate at home also,
Yeah.
right? Have your house help or whatever you can, take help. Like,
Mm.
I would say that woman is not good at asking help, so asking help is also very important. Having
Yeah.
good relation, not just in workplace, but with the house
Home.
help, with your people who are supporting you,
Partner.
is very
Yeah.
important. Because, and I treat house help, just like, yeah, please do it for me, and I like your help. And we should have that relationships, and that's how it will take you. If you think that doing a certification will take you ahead, it won't. The life skills
Mm.
will be one of the major things you need to learn, because you need to go from surviving to thriving. You cannot keep
Yeah.
surviving. If you are in a survival mode, then you're burning out, and you can just go till what life takes you. From there,
Yeah.
it is all, it
Yeah.
is going
I
to be
think
hotness.
I love that you mentioned certification because I just see people burn money, like invest money into certifications
Yeah.
and would not get a career coach, would not invest in a coach. And I'm like, but that doesn't make any sense, like, um,
Yeah.
and the reason they do it, I'll tell you, is because it's so much easier to just stay safe. And I think that's what women are doing a lot of times, or even men I see. Well, we just don't want to risk it, right? Like if I take a certification, it's super less low risk, right? Because I study, I get the certification, my reward is done, and we're playing that small game, right? Versus saying, listen, I want to redirect my entire life. Listen, I want to change. Like that's hard. That's a very hard thing to say and go after. And what you're also mentioning is that I think people want titles just for the sake of it, but they don't recognize what that person actually does and how that person shows up every day, because you need to become that person to then get that title. They feel like, no, once I get the title, I'll act like a director. It's like, no, you got to become a director of your life today,
Yeah.
and the result of that would be getting the director
Exactly.
title when you get there. And
Yeah.
we do so much of this in the program, right, where we're trying to talk about the transformation 1.0 to 2.0. And that's what I tell the girls, and they're like, why is this important? I just want to apply. And I'm like, no, because applying for anything is useless unless you've embraced that identity of
Yeah.
automation, delegation, deletion, things that don't belong, changing your ways. I mean, this was hard for you also. You've gone through so much coaching, not just through the program but with other coaches too. So how did you sort of, were you always self-aware that I must change, or how did you sort of arrive at that? Because I feel like so many people are stuck. They don't want to accept that I am the problem and I can be the solution to it.
Yeah.
And it takes certain amount of courage. So I'm curious how you got into the coaching journey of like seeking professional help to grow yourself, because it clearly has paid off. I mean, come on, you've done some incredible things, and now you sort of credit a lot of that as well to your growth. And it's a great tool to have. I just think that
Yeah.
so many people are hung up on the money, or like, she's going to tell me how to live my life. Oh, I know everything already. So
Yeah.
how did you sort of arrive at that point where you're like, okay, I'm ready, let's do it, it makes total sense? So yeah, just share that a little bit.
Sure. I think you brought up a point of being stuck, right?
Mm,
Right. And what do you do when you're stuck, right? Do you do the same activity to overcome that stuckness, or do you do a different activity to overcome that stuckness, right? So, what takes you here won't take you here, right? Many people don't understand that kind of gap,
mm,
and that's why that stuckness comes. And they may just think that, you just change the environment, things will be fine, right? Like if there is a dirty pond, and you just the fish is not doing well, you just change the pond, this fish will do well. It's not the case, right? We need to go into the root cause and understand why the fish is not well, and treat it, and then the fish will thrive,
mm,
right? The same, I think, mistake we all do is that we think that what took us here, the same thing will take us the other side. But it's not the case. You need to evolve, you need to change, you need to adopt a new approach of thinking, you need to add on new skills also. We didn't talk about, see, I am not saying that you should not be technical, you should not upgrade and all that. That's all part. I'm considering it as by default.
Hmm.
The technical skill upgrade, everyone we would tell, right? But what people won't know is that it's not just the technical or the talent or your talent. Your talent will take you one step, your skills will take you one step, your studying understanding will take you one step. But when we deal with people, you need a different skill of understanding people's emotions. For that you need to understand your own emotions, and for that you need to grow emotionally. And many people don't want to grow emotionally. They think
Mm.
that it, like I told you, right, they think that corporate bubble is materialistic. It's not materialistic. Human exist, and whenever there are humans there will be emotions, and we need to learn these life skills to tackle these emotions, politics, conflicts. Because many of them, they would join, but then they, like I told you, right, the fish story, it's the similar thing. Okay, the job here is not good, just change the jobs, keep changing the job and keep repeating the stuff, right? That is not going to help. But learning to navigate through these challenges, politics, human emotions, is going to take you far. Because
Yeah.
the skills, talent and all these things are easy. This
Yeah.
is not to be taught, and these things will come from a third person sometimes, because you have a limited brain, you have your limited thinking. Sometimes having a mentor, coach, can give you that perspective of a third person. And
Mm.
that can, like, for me it was, every time I talk to a mentor, of course there is always an aha moment for me, and I learn new stuff. Why did I think about it? Because they do a lot of research, they have gone through, some mentors have gone through experience, some go through this research, and they do
Yeah.
so lot, and they interact with 10 different people, they bring so much knowledge to you. You are consulting a one coach, one mentor, but you are getting the knowledge of hundreds and thousand people. So I think I am very much a lazy person and automation person. That's why I'm an efficient person. So I like to take all the knowledge of one person who's already done the work. I don't want to do my own work. No, but
I
I'm just
love it.
kidding. But yeah, that's how it
Yeah,
helps.
that's how
Is
I
what
am
I
too.
think.
I'm like, why would I reinvent it? Somebody has done it, and if I have the resources. And I feel like sometimes people get hung up on resources as well, because
Yeah.
resources can be created, right? So if there's a saying that no matter how poor you are, the family will find the money for a funeral. No matter how poor you are, right? Everybody is going to get a cremation somehow. Somehow that money is going to arrive, and some they're going to be laid to rest. I know this is a very dark example, but when there's a will, there's a way. So I feel like people get so hung up on the resources. Oh, I don't have the money, I don't have this, I don't have that, and I think that just goes to show that you're not ready to be a leader yet, because you're not resourceful. Because that's
Yeah.
one other thing that leaders need is like, hey, I can't afford this, but maybe I can afford this. Or like, for example, when I couldn't afford, I remember my first coaching call was with Tony Robbins' company, and it was like a clarity call. And they said it was 2017, and they just doing their first like form gave me so much clarity, and then speaking to them for 30 minutes gave me like even more clarity. And then they told me that it was going to be $3,000, and I had like $300 in my account. And I said, no way. But that did not stop me. In fact, I made it a goal. I said I need to be at a place where I can afford a coach, because that's what it takes. If 30 minutes could do this, what would $3,000 do, right? And
Yeah.
then I just went down this path of like self-aware, self coaching. So I'm reading. I ended up reading in 2018 61 books, because books you can buy or you can get it from free from library, right? So you don't have that excuse either. So it's like where there's a will,
Yeah.
there's a way. And I feel like a lot of people don't want to even explore it, because either they're too scared or they just don't have that understanding that I cannot figure this out, just because I don't know what I don't know. And why would I like to know all the things that
Mm.
are not a part of my ecosystem right now? And like you said, you don't do it alone. Nobody does it alone. There are and the best analogy I can give is like, look at the celebrities, politicians. What is their entourage? Like, think about the amount of people that come in and help this person. It's ridiculous. And you don't even ask your husband to do the dishes. Like, what? and you want that kind of success. So I feel like, yeah, that paradigm shift has to
Yeah.
happen, is that somebody's figured it out, and I can use their resources and I can use their knowledge. And like you said, when I hire coaches too, I ask them, okay, how much have you invested in yourself? And usually these people have invested way over six figures. And I'm like, wow, like I get to tap in on that knowledge. That's amazing, you know? And then when you're in the program, doing everything the mentor asks, which again, I think that was a big one for you as well, is like, that's when you do the work. That's when you don't question, you go through the discomfort and you do it, and you trust the process, because I think that's really important too, because coaching is not like an elixir that will fix your life, which is how it might be marketed or it might look like, because that's the marketing language people use. But you're the one who's going to do all of the work. um,
Yeah.
and if you do it, then you will get benefit, because there is no way to like lose knowledge is always the best investment and the best teaching. So I love that. Now, you mentioned a lot of things about human and relationships and human interaction and connections. You're in a space which is at the precipice of a very big change with artificial intelligence coming in. I know it's scaring people, I know it's changing the tech landscape by the hour, and there's a lot of anxiety around it, and there's a lot of excitement as well. I mean, I think it's a great place to be. But what, as an IT leader, how would you explain what's happening to people who look up to you and who are wondering, what's AI going to do? What are your thoughts on this topic of like, how will it shift the IT industry, and how important will it make those human relationships, those life skills, you know, and also how will it impact women, especially women in tech and women in STEM? So I'm just curious on your opinion and your thoughts on the whole AI revolution and how it's sort of sweeping off like everything we knew about tech.
I think that's a good question. Yeah, I think being a curious person myself and very explorative towards, like, I'm very fascinated about the new technology always. And I always think that AI is just like our friend, and it's going to be part of our lives because if you see the phone, right? Let's smartphone today, we do never go out without our phones, right? And it has become a part of lives, and it has helped in many ways. Similarly, AI is going to be our part of lives, and that everybody needs to accept. And I would say, you know use it to your advantage. Use it to automate your administrative work or any other repetitive work, which machine can do. I always believe which machine can do, human shouldn't be doing that.
Mm,
And humans should spend more and more time in in-person conversations, which is something very much missing and would be very scarce in future. So I would say, instead of doing the machine work, you give that to the machine, give that to the AI, free up your space and contribute more where human only can do things like, having in-person connections. We talked about a lot about the relationships and
mm,
giving that, because and there would be certain professions where that would be kind of, and it would, the human connection would become very costly, is what I have predicted.
mm,
Just being an analytical person, that comes natural to me, that I would predict human service will become very, very costly. So better you do that, take that right now as much as you can, because we might think other way around, that AI is going to eat up
mm,
humans, but we need to understand that we use AI to our advantage and build more
mm,
human connections, where that is something which people would feel, benefit more from it, right?
mm,
Shouldn't be doing the mundane and repetitive task. Leave it to AI
mm,
and focus more on these kind of things, because in the jobs also, like, I hear a lot, and definitely it's going to eat up jobs. It is going to eat up job, but which jobs? The jobs which are repetitive, which are stagnant, which are which machines can do. So you should be smart enough to understand which task a machine can do, which can't human can't do, and start putting more energy into developing the skills which only human can do. And if it
Mm,
can be in your corporate setup, it can be in your job, it can be in your business, right?
yeah.
Identify those areas and start getting expert into those things is what I think. And in fact,
Yeah.
it is giving us more space to do these kind of things. And if we do the opposite, like we learn something which a machine can do and spend a lot of time, then definitely AI is going to eat up your job.
I
That's
love
my
that.
take.
That makes life skills even more important. I love that you said, I want to put it on a t-shirt. AI is your friend. I was like, that's it. That's all I needed to hear. You put my
You
problems
know,
to ease.
yeah, you need to make your friend, otherwise it will, if it is your enemy, then definitely it will make your life more worse, and
Yeah,
you
and I
don't
think,
want to make that
yeah,
happen.
I think that the media has a big part to play, right? So if we were we when we were growing up, or the movies around, the whole, like, what is it called? I can't remember the name now, with the Arnold Schwarzenegger, Terminator, right? So I mean, I feel like
Yeah,
the visuals are so, like, real in our head, that the machines were always the villains, and so I think that really plays a big role, and I think the same thing happens with bias as well, right? If you look at shows, I was talking about this on another podcast. I was like, if you look at TV shows, they have such a big influence on how we think, because if you look at Big Bang Theory, right, all the smart girls were ugly and all the pretty girls were dumb, and that's it. And they did that for 12 years. Somebody's feeding you that stereotype, your brain's going to start to take on it. It's the same way how AI was marketed or branded was the villain. Or,
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, even though Arnold Schwarzenegger was not the villain, but the whole idea that, this thing can take over humanity is, like, fed to you. And therefore, there is a lot of fear, and therefore, you have to lean in and learn. And I honestly, at last few months, I've really used it in my business a lot. I was very scared for the first few months, but then I'm like, no, I just need to jump in and learn. And another thing that is that the more you use it, the more you train it. So it needs those diverse voices and thoughts and everything to become the language model, or become the model that we want it to become. So you feeding it information is actually good for humanity, right? So if you don't share your thoughts or don't use AI, then it's going to skew right towards the
yeah,
data that's fed to it, because it's working with that same data. So it's your responsibility to create more conversations, create more data, use it enough so you can actually build it in a way that it would serve everybody, versus, if only a few bunch of smart people use it, then we'll never get it to a place where it actually can serve everyone else. So I love that, and I love that you said the human interaction is going to become more expensive, so make the most out of it. So yeah, I'm glad I started my podcast at the right time. We need human interactions. And that's why I think even podcasts are doing well, right? Like, people are like, I want to hear real
yeah,
conversations. Like, I want to talk to a human. Like, I hear it on my calls as well, where people are like, there's so much information. I don't know how to sort through it. Like, it has created a new
yeah.
problem. And it's going to keep doing that, right? Because that's how humanity sustains itself. We create a solution so that we can create 10 more problems. And so
Yeah,
instead of solving
and
this problem, you'll solve the next problem.
that's what, yeah, see, even if we lose jobs when AI is like capturing or
Mm,
everywhere, but we also have jobs of the problems created by AI. So it's it is just that the only thing is that we need to just learn to navigate
of
through
course.
this change. And change has its phases. It's a denial phase first.
Yeah.
It's, and then start to understand this and then accept. So I think the change curve, everybody goes through these stages. And
Yeah,
obviously I also went through these changes, but I think embracing the change is always going to act in your favor. I think
rather than
that is
resisting
what
it.
we can do, right? And similarly, it happened in the past, and always go back to the history, right? And that will give you some kind of good things. Like manufacturing industry, at one point
Yeah,
of time there were so many laborers doing the packaging, doing this and that, and today everything is automated. The food industry is automated, and everything, the packaging
yeah,
it machine does. But the change happened when that got moved to some other directions, right? And
of
we just
course.
need to keep up. life is not
Yeah.
linear. We have ups
Yeah,
and
like,
downs. We just need to know how you,
yeah,
you know,
like the profession
navigate through
I'm
these
in,
ups and downs.
didn't exist during my parents' generation. It didn't even exist 5 years ago,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
So it has
yeah.
created so many professions now. The technology has created, like, you and I can talk from different countries. I have team members in Philippines, Serbia, India, Dubai, like everywhere. And so not only are we creating opportunities, we're creating opportunities globally where we are trading time in dollars, honestly, and everybody's prosperous, right? Like, so I feel like there's just so much upside as well, and we have to lean in. So I love all of that, Deepthi. Oh my God, it was so wonderful talking to you so far. I just have a couple of questions before I let you go to sleep, but and I'm so energized. Like, I don't know if you feel it.
I think we both energize each other whenever
I'm
we
like
talk.
jumping on my seat. I'm like, oh my God. Like, I think my head's gonna fall off from, like, and I'm like, this is why I always have to do a podcast. Like, I'm gonna
Yeah,
do it till the last day on the planet, because it's so amazing to have these great conversations. So this is what human connection looks like, guys. Like, neural syncing is happening. But my question was,
absolutely.
yeah, but my question was gonna be, um, and it is a little bit more specific to the academy. It's been a year you've been in the after you've left the program. Tell me, what is the one tool that you still use to this day that you learned with us, so that it kind of inspires others also to think that coaching is a long term investment. People can do this and keep those lessons with them. So, what is the one thing that you probably still use to this day?
Yeah, I think when I met you, you were clarity and confidence coach. So I think definitely that confidence is what I took away from you. And I used to like, have a different perspective towards confidence. I used to think that confidence is something which you have it in you. But I think it is all about building your confidence and through actions. And I think you are the one who just, we were like discussing like, okay, I want to do a podcast. When you do, yeah, yeah, just do it tomorrow and just take a big leap. I think I never knew that something can be started, like thought overnight, and then can be started overnight. I think that was something I have done in my life first time, like without preparations, right? Because I'm very much a planning preparation person. I would take my time and then start. And I think many women also fall into this trap that they would be 100% ready and then they would start working on it. But I think that is what I have learned, that you don't have to be 100%. You start with something which you already have and then improve over the period of time, but take consistent actions. And even if it is not consistent, in fact, I learned that too, that you don't have to be consistent, but try to make sure that you do it over and over again, and then ultimately you will develop that confidence in that task. And that's how I've started doing other tasks also the similar way, that I know now that if I take actions, then definitely I would reach to a certain level. Maybe I will not continue after a certain point. I've learned that also, like, okay, it may fall, or it may be
Yeah.
it may be a failure, but I learn through the failures. But if I
Hmm.
don't even take actions, I will not be able to learn. So I think
Yeah.
that is the confidence I got from you.
I love it. I'm still a clarity and confidence coach, by the way. We have a
Yeah,
different messaging,
yeah.
but we're still, I mean, when people join the program and I give them 1.0 to 2.0, they're like, what's happening? I'm like, but this is the key. I promise it'll get you
No,
the
we should
job
be
that you
always
want.
open for a change, right? That's why I said it could change. It was
Yeah,
before,
yeah.
but I don't know now.
It's still the same. It's still the same. The values are the same. It's just the messaging, it always
Yeah,
evolves in how we can serve more people and meet more people and help more people. So I love that. I love that you took away, because it's like, it's funny because I grew up with the like, do and learn mentality. I don't know why. Like,
yeah,
my parents were not engineers or anything, but my dad was always like, you just do it and you figure
yeah.
it out. Like, that is the best way to learn. So I signed up for a competition to build model aircraft, and I had no clue how to build one. So I'm like, oh no, let's build it.
Yeah.
And turns out I ended up building like 135 planes in 2 years, and came to the US. And like, that little action just created so much momentum. And it's the same thing with the podcast. I came up with it one day. I'm like, let's do it. After that Tony Robbins call, like she said, why don't you do something about engineering and women in engineering? And I'm like, oh, like let's do it. Like that's it. And I'm like, let's run with it. And it has created so much momentum that sometimes I sit with my husband, look back, and I'm like, what the hell? Like what? Like what? Like what is happening? Like, we don't plan for these things as much as we are intentional, but there's so much value in it, because after a certain point in your life, you don't have the time to waste, to learn, to get all the pieces in your place, and the world's moving too fast. And now what? With AI, the people are going to leap and bound and take quantum leaps, and you're going to be sitting there like going through your notes, and nothing is going to happen in your life if you don't do that. I feel like in the program we say, right, like it's like learn and do is the old philosophy where you learned something and gave exam. Just flip it, do and learn, and you will be rewarded more in terms of lessons, in terms of um, opportunities, in terms of clarity. Because even active clarity, right? Like I'm like, Deepthi, we can sit here and talk about purpose all day, or we can
Do it.
do
Yeah.
the purpose and figure it out if it is our purpose or not. So I love that you took that away. It was a great reminder for me as well. And even this podcast was the same way. And
I
Deepthi,
think
1 year
even
ago,
the
what advice?
agile technique also says like fail fast, do.
Yeah, yeah, you just
So
have
I
to get
think,
your
yeah,
hands
we need
dirty.
to change. I
I
was
love
never
that.
that person. I was like, oh, I need to first understand and do and plan and then do it. I think I definitely learned
Yeah.
about
So it's
do
like,
and learn.
for, I love that. And it's like, if you want to be successful, right? Mostly people are trying to be successful because they want to be successful in public, right? Like they want public to know their titles.
Yeah.
They want public to know that I'm a big deal. The rule of thumb is, if you want to be successful in public, you better practice in public. You better fail in public. Only then you
Mm.
have the right to be successful in public, right? Like that's how I see it. So when I launched this
I
podcast, same thing happened. 12 minutes of radio silence, Deepthi. There was no audio. I'm like, what? But then I'm like, let's fail in public, because when the show takes off, people remember that, because you're not afraid to fail in public. But go ahead, sorry, I cut you off.
No, I did the same thing, right, with Sheeta podcast when I started that. It's like I forgot to record, hit the record button. So my first podcast was without a recording. So I think, yeah, I learned through doing such kind of goof ups in on the field. So I think, yeah, we all should be doing that in
I love it.
some way of the form. Make mistakes, make and learn from it and
Yeah,
do it. So yeah, that's
I
how
love
we
it.
learn.
I'll quote my dad one more time, just because I'm remembering him. One thing he said to me is like, I'll if you make a mistake, I'll come to your school every day. You can make a mistake. I have no problem. I'll come to your school. I talk to your teachers. If you make the same mistake again, that is when you're in real trouble. So, meaning now you're stupid because you didn't learn from the first one and you wasted your time making the same one. But go ahead and make 100 mistakes. I'll be at school 100 times. But if you make the same mistake 100 times, then we have a bigger problem.
Yeah.
Then your brain's not working. So, what makes you stupid is doing the same mistake again and again and again. But what makes you smart is doing multiple mistakes, and all the mistakes hopefully are at a higher level, so that you learn from it and you can move forward. So I love it. My last question, Dipti, is what is your favorite book?
I think there are many, and I'm these days reading a lot. I haven't finished completely yet, but I'm reading this book, Scott Mindset, and I think this would change a lot of perspective in terms of thinking in probability. Like,
Mm,
every time we think in black and white, right? And we have this tendency to ignore the gray, right? And life is all about gray, right? And I think this book teaches, like, there was a military mindset before that. Okay, these are the set of rules and we need to follow, and that's it, right? But then there is something called a Scott mindset, where you determine good and bad or right and wrong based on probability. You're not saying that, okay, this is something which is ultimate truth or this is something ultimate false, right? And I think everybody should start thinking on those lines and
Mm,
start developing that mindset if they have to grow further. Because many of the mistakes what we make is to just box or to just cage it as and categorize that good and bad, and then we are stuck, right? Because that is the mindset. Like there was an incident in that book, where two couples were consulted, right? Whether you
mm,
take a COVID situations, right? And they were consulted whether you would like to take the vaccine, right? And vaccine is completely safe is what doctor said. But then the research, or the one couple, both the couples did a research and they saw that it's not completely safe, but there are some side effects to it, right?
mm,
Person may sometimes die of anaphylactic shock as well. So there are certain side effects. But both the couples had different conclusion based on different mindset they had. One couple said, no, we are not going ahead with your vaccine, and we would like to just stay away from it. We may
mm,
die from COVID, but we don't want a vaccine. And the other couple were also having their own apprehensions towards like whether they should take the uh, vaccine or not. And they had a mindset of scout mindset of doing certain probability based of analysis. Like the yes, the vaccine as doctor claimed is not 100% safe, but it has its own side effects. But there is an history of one or two as such in a case where there is certain severe reactions. So we might like the probability of being safe is 90% and not safe is 10%. So we might go for 90%. So we say yes to vaccine.
mm.
And that's why they got the vaccine based on their mindset, which was
Logical
closed
thinking.
before, but they were open to see things differently based on the
Mm,
different inputs. And I think every one of us needs to have that open mindedness and that mindset when we grow, uh, you know in
absolutely.
further generations also. So yeah, I would
Yeah.
it's a long answer, but that is the book I would recommend to
I
everybody.
love it. Could you spell the name?
It's
Oh,
SCOUT, I
Scout's
guess.
mindset. Okay, Scout's
Yeah,
mindset.
the
Yes,
scout
yes.
mindset.
I love it. I
Yep.
love it. Excellent. Thank you so much, Deepthi, for your time. And it was such a great, like last minute conversation, but it felt like we were rehearsing it for years. I love it.
I know you just told me few hours back, and then we did this, and I think yeah, you can. I like I said, right? You wouldn't have imagined me doing this a year back, right? And today I'm able to take this just few hours back notice. So yeah, and that's
Yeah.
the transformation. And I would like to thank all the mentors and coaches in my life, and thanks to Prasha for being
Oh,
wonderful coach, confidence coach, clarity coach. I think I learned a lot during that period, and it was very fun. Whenever Prasha speaks, my smile by default I smile because she brings in so much of energy. So thanks for inviting me, and I
yeah.
feel really grateful to be on this podcast. Thank you so much.
I love it. Thank you so much, Deepthi. And we will get this all zhuzhed up and nice and pretty, and we will share it on our podcasting platforms. And then last thing, how can people find you? And if they wanted to work with you or do something with you, collaborate with you, what would be a great channel for them? We'll definitely share the links as well in the notes as well.
Yeah, I think they can always reach out on my LinkedIn chat.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And we're cheering you on for the book release, the TEDx. I will not let you go out of my life till you do the TEDx and
I
till you
wish
do the book.
that happens someday.
It'll happen.
I think that time comes right when you are ready, and I think I'm all
Absolutely.
set to get ready for
Be I
that.
love it. I'll be in the first row. I promise. No matter where it is in the world. So I'll be there. Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you so much for listening,
Thank you so
guys.
much.
And we'll be back with another episode of the Prash